Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again. Now it's time for episode 208 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be talking about the latest album from a San Francisco-based singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist who has played in a variety of different bands that were signed to labels such as Matador and Slumberland Records. And Records. His background sort of comes from punk rock, but lately he's sort of been delving into some more melodic territory with his later records. Of course, I'm talking about the ever-prolific Tony Molina, which he put out his debut album, Dissed and Dismissed, back in 2014 on Slumberland Records, which was literally a 12-song record that clocked in at over 12 minutes. He is known for making some very short songs, resulting in by far some of the shortest full-length LPs you'll ever hear. And I'm here to review his most recent album, which he dropped on July 27th of 2018, and the album is called Kill the Lights. As you can see, I have it on CD here. I would love to get this on vinyl, but I saw this at Soundgarden, and I figured because I love the album, I decided to get it. And this is a record that Tony Molina definitely still has punk rock sort of in his veins, but here on this record, he sort of dives into the jangle pop and the folk rock pool here on this record. And making a record that is 10 songs in over 15 minutes. Yes, you heard me right. 15 minutes of material here. But still, he has the ability to do so much, more things in 15 minutes than most bands do, on their longest LPs. So here's the album cover. Here's the back. Slumberland Records, of course, releases this album once again. Very kind of simple, bare bones kind of packaging, but you do get a picture of Tony Molina from his high school yearbook from the year 2000 in here. Yeah, a nice little dopey high school picture right there. They always put some sort of picture of him in the packagings for his albums, on the Dissed and Dismissed record and the Confront the Truth EP that he put out in 2016, which saw him going into this much softer kind of sound. There's some liner notes there. Jack Shirley did some of the recording for this. And then there's the CD. And that's the CD packaging for Tony Molina's latest album, Kill the Lights. So, like I said, Tony Molina does have the ability to make short songs that still, leave such a big impression on you that it's definitely the kind of music that just leaves you wanting more, for sure. That's kind of part of the beauty of Kill the Lights. I mean, the opening track, Nothing I Can Say, is one example of this kind of beauty, with this very gorgeous, jangly 12-string guitar riff that sounds very much inspired by an old Byrds record. I mean, the Byrds are actually a pretty big influence on this record. So it isn't really the Weezer, or it's not really like the Weezer or power punk kind of influence that he sort of embraced on his previous material, but rather something much more something much more poppy, but still nonetheless compelling. It's paired really nicely with these very beautiful few lines, which definitely show a sense of insight and introspection in his lyrics. I mean, they're simple. They're definitely not Shakespearean vocabulary, but the way that he sings them is enough to sort of really kind of leave an emotional impact on the listener. And I love the kind of psychedelic harmonies in the background of this track and the kind of brushed drums and brushed percussion in the background. Then the following track, Wrong Town, sort of pulls a little bit from Elliott Smith's playbook a little bit with its double-tracked vocals and its simple truth in the lyrical content about this guy who lives in this town that he thinks is the wrong town for him to live in because all these people that he thought were his friends just ultimately let him down and just kind of left him kind of disappointed and out in the street. So he and I love how he says for the second verse, gotta go back to the West Bay, the only place where I could stay, 'cause there's no place I can go to without running into you. I mean, that's it's a pretty bleak kind of record, and it's kind of a bleak record, and this track I think is a really good example of it still, nonetheless gorgeous. And it does close out with some really nice organ lines to go over its finger-picked guitars. So it has a little bit of an old school Elliott Smith either or kind of inspiration going on for this track. The next track, Afraid to Go Outside, is probably my least favorite track on here. I love its kind of jangly and catchy organ-laced instrumental, but its lyrical content, its few lines are kind of excuse me. Much of this song's few lines are lines like I just want to hide and I don't ever want to feel alone. These are kind of some lines that you've probably heard in some of the best jangle folk ballads ever written by many a sort of legendary prodigy, musical legend. Now that she's gone, though, it definitely is a nice little redemption from this lull. Easily one of my favorite tracks on this album. I mean, the melody on the track is very masterfully written. It's very kind of somber and kind of dejected, but at the same time, it sounds very it shows that there's a strangely kind of haunting side to this record, which not all really short records can do, which makes Tony Molina's melody when he sings, "Now that she's gone, it's getting harder to hang on." It's kind of hooky. As he sort of talks about this relationship that sort of gone wrong for him, and also that gorgeous harmonized guitar solo towards the end of the track is just downright heavenly. It's one of the best moments. It's one of my favorite moments of this entire album. So the fact that it fades out abruptly is kind of funny. Jasper's theme follows that up. It's the second longest cut on here. I'll talk about the longest track in a little bit, but this track, Jasper's theme, I love how Molina sort of goes from this one love of his that sort of, kind of faded away. Excuse me. That's kind of faded away and sort of looking for another love. He opens the song with how he's alone again and he can't find no way home. And there are just some very tremendous lyrics on here, like the line of it's getting hard to hate the home of old, or that's what I think he's saying, but whatever it is, it sounds like a nice little poeticism right there. It's a poeticism, and also some other very memorable lines on the track are it's hard to see which way my love must go. I'm killing time looking for some hope. And also, some great production on this track. I mean, I love how it certainly is kind of a folk pop ballad, but it's also you could tell this is coming from a guy with a punk rock heart with its guitars being kind of distorted and really good, with its lead guitars being kind of distorted and sounding kind of like him kind of rocking out like a punk, but very subtly. And that twangy guitar solo at the end definitely sounds very nice. Some B3 organ in the mix too. That sounds really beautiful. Full, and the drums are kind of sound like they're played with brushes. They're punctuated nicely with some tambourine. Some very solid production throughout this album. However, the track "Give He Take You" is another one that I kind of cite as one of my highlights off this record, because I love how kind of instantly memorable its jangly riffs are. Its instantly memorable jangly riffs are and also I really like how it follows up the previous track with some lines of "I don't know if I should see her because I've been here for some time, and she's always on my mind. It's unkind." Really bringing a lot of wisdom and insight to his very kind of blunt, but yet very, melancholy and bleak lyrical content. Lyrical content. But, an even kind of bleaker cut would definitely have to be the track "When She Leaves," which at first was kind of a least favorite cut for me on this record. Because I kind of thought its lyrics sound a little similar to other cuts on the record and their lines, which I still kind of feel that way. But the track has really grown on me to the point where I think it's a very kind of necessary moment on the record. Once again, a very nicely written vocal melody here on this track. Which really makes you believe him as he says stuff like, "If it's over, I'm old enough to know." Old enough to know. And of course, some really nice guitar playing on there. That finger-picked solo in the middle is definitely shows something that is endearing in the best of ways. Following that is the longest cut on the record, the 2.5 minute track, which actually is two short songs in one, which is the song "Look Inside Your Mind" and the instrumental track "Losing Touch." "Look Inside Your Mind" opens up with a line of "When I look inside your mind, nobody can see you." Great poeticism right there. And it has just 4 lines, but they're definitely enough to really kind of leave an impact. As he says stuff like, "And after all the years you find, you relive the things you wish you left behind." And then the song transitions into "Losing Touch," this gorgeous instrumental track, which features some awesome, guitar solos, on the track over some really beautiful B3 organ, piano, bass, and drums, before the song eventually ends with a really nice, kind of grand acoustic guitar and piano coda. It's definitely a pretty it is pretty satisfying for pretty much the longest cut here on this 15-minute album. album. The following track, Before You Go, is another one where I definitely hear somewhat of an Elliott Smith influence here. The influence here, which you can see in its finger-picked guitars, and also in its and also somewhat in its lyrical content, and it really does. And its 5 lines really are pretty satisfying closing lines for this song cycle, as you may call it. Call it. Which goes, can I stay with you before you go? Because my house is not a home. We're both living so alone. Because I'm waiting for your call. And but you don't see me at all. And then it closes out with a short instrumental track, which is aptly titled Outro, which is kind of like psychedelic, sort of nice little psychedelic closer for this album, featuring mellotron flutes and kind of weepy like guitar lines. Even though my only issue with this track is that it seems pretty abrupt as it just kind of fades out, and you're just kind of left wanting more. Even though I know what you may be thinking. Well, as short songs and leaving you wanting more is just what Tony Molina does, and it is true that is what he does, but he really does it with so much sort of musicianship and like heart that he definitely has the ability to make a 15-minute album seem longer than it actually is. And this sort of thing actually kind of fits in with this day and age of music right now, where album length is one of the big topics being discussed right now, thanks to Kanye. Thanks to all the different projects that Kanye West has been involved in this year, obviously the Pusha T record, the Kids See Ghosts album, the new Nas record, and even though this album certainly isn't in that territory whatsoever, it still really does kind of make sense with this day and age of music, where we're sort of realizing that an album doesn't have to be 42 minutes in order to be considered a record. Anyway, love this album. Definitely, he does a good job of sort of embracing all these old school influences of his, sort of mining the past, but doing it in a way that still feels very current and sort of relevant to today's age. And some great songwriting on this album, fantastic hooks and melodies throughout. He definitely leaves his own sort of skills, he definitely leaves his own sort of artistic imprints and skills throughout this record, which I really do appreciate for an album that's only 15 minutes. So I'm going with an 8 out of 10 for this new Tony Molina record, and I'll see you for episode 209 of Album of the Day.